While management changes are needed, the Postal Service needs to stay alive.
The Postal Service is going to have to change in order to stay alive.
The American Religious Town Hall is now in session.
Welcome, friends, to the American Religious Town Hall meeting, where the discussion of religious, political, and social issues is meant to promote the cause of religious freedom and to help us better understand each other. And now, here's your host and moderator, Pastor Jerry Lutz.
Welcome to the American Religious Town Hall. I'm James Weingardner, sitting in for Pastor Jerry Lutz. And we're here during the COVID with a reduced panel in order to provide for some more spatial distancing. And we'd like to introduce that panel to you right now, and we'll begin on my right.
I'm Bishop Michael OLSON, and I am the Bishop of the Roman Catholic Diocese of Fort Worth, Texas.
Hi, I'm Carl TROVALL. I'm Professor of Ethics and History at Concordia University in Austin, Texas.
I'm Tom Plumbley. I'm a senior minister of First Christian Church in Fort Worth, Texas. We're a part of the Christian Church Disciples of Christ.
Hello, everyone. I'm Tony Matthews. I'm the senior pastor at North Garland Baptist Fellowship in Garland, Texas.
Our subject today is an interesting and important one, and it has to do with the United States Postal Service. The U.S. Postal Service runs annual deficits in the billions of dollars. As an agency of the federal government, the bailouts contribute to the national debt. Many of the basic postal items have been replaced by email and other online communication. The package service discounts deliveries to major shippers, contributing to the deficit. The unionized workforce costs increase, including the cost of pensions and benefits. The bailouts are billed by opponents as government assistance to Amazon and the unions. Proponents argue that the service is necessary and beneficial. The Postal Service is the only daily delivery to extremely rural parts of the country and has been a beloved tradition in the U.S. for almost the lifetime of the nation. The alternative to continued bailouts is bankruptcy and potential privatization. Some argue that these would be healthy, while others predict delivery anarchy and untenable pricing for deliveries that may itself require government support. We'd like our panelists to address the following questions. 1, should the U.S. government continue to bail out the postal system? 2, how would the failure of the U.S. Postal Service affect Americans? And 3, is daily delivery to every address in the nation a right? And so we begin our discussion back where we started with Bishop OLSON.
Thank you very much. The words of the late Senator Everett Dirksen come to mind. $1 billion here, $1 billion there, and sooner or later it's real money. And I think when we think about the post office, the use of the term bailout, even though there's been consistent expenditures that have increased over these years, requires us to look at how we're doing this. I think the Postal Service is absolutely necessary, particularly for those who don't have access to email, who don't have access to the internet for ordering things online, etc., or who are in some ways encumbered by age and an inability to change or confusion over these new forces of technology in their life. So I think there needs to be something explored as we deal with the just payment of wages with unions of our postal workers, to ask the private sector to cooperate, particularly these large users like Amazon, who rely entirely on the post office for their delivery system, and to have them in some way cooperate in a way that will alleviate spending and will in some way rectify costs for the common good of society. I think also the Postal Service provides a good in that it doesn't put all of the control of communication in the private sector as well. which would bring about a lack of trust in our forms of communication, in being able to deliver messages, etc., that are absolutely vital to our lives as individuals and to the life of our society and the common good.
Dr. Matthews?
Yeah, it's an interesting topic, the Postal Service. I read an article titled "The State of the U.S. Service in 8 Charts" by Drew DeSilver and Catherine Schaefer. And I want to start with some good news. It was really a fascinating article. The good news is that in terms of favorability, the U.S. Postal Service, according to the Pew Research Center, has a 91% favorability rating with Americans and 91% shares of Democrats and Republicans, and that's really, and that's just good news in the climate that we're in. 91% view of favorability. The problem is because Congress created the Postal Service to replace the old Post Office Department, and it was mandated that the new agency support itself through its own revenues, and of course that is a major problem. The last time the Postal Service, according to this article, had a profit was in 2006, and the cumulative losses since then have been $83.1 billion, and that's just an astronomical number. And why is this? And basically, the article states that obviously they're just delivering fewer pieces of mail. They're proposing, as I mentioned at the outset, is that they're going to have to make some changes in order to survive. And they're proposing that they can retire, or their retirees should enroll in Medicare, and that's going to open up and save a lot of funds. And they also are looking at shrinking their workforce. Now, something else that's interesting that the article mentioned is that the efforts to shrink the Postal Service payroll would likely affect racial and ethnic minorities across the country, because they said that the postal workers are more racially and ethnically diverse, or is the most ethnically and racially diverse group in the U.S. Labor force. And I thought that was really fascinating. So once they start cutting significantly back, they're worried that it's going to impact, by and large, racial minorities. So I love the post office. And then there's another factor with the rural communities, delivering mail there. Something needs to happen, but I know we can't continue to bail out the post office, but at the same time, we can't let it go. And can the private industry, can they even, would this be something that would be doable? Because the nature of the Postal Service is a little different, I think, than other businesses that are, quote unquote, bailed out.
Reverend Plumbley?
Yeah, quote unquote, bailed out. That's a pejorative term. And Mr. Moderator, as you read, you just continued. You used the term bailout, which is a negative term. We don't use that. We don't say we're bailing out the Defense Department, do we? This is intentionally named the United States Postal Service. It is a service to the people of the country. This is not a corporation. It was not built to make a profit. It's not a corporation. It is all about serving serving the people. So, and it's not just a beloved tradition. It's not just a quaint anachronism. It is something that was felt to be so vital to democracy, as democracy was being created by our founders, that of all the pieces of government that were possible to be talked about, it was one that is spoken of specifically in the Constitution of the United States. And didn't have to wait for the Bill of Rights to get it out there. You know, we shall establish a post office was a part of what was going to hold this country together, pull these disparate former colonies together to make us a nation. Communication has changed, but the service that this particular part of our government, this particular, I don't know, arm's length quasi-governmental group continues to contribute to our society is still vital, and we need to understand it not as a burden, but it's a part of what we do. It's a part of what government is. It's a part of the way democracy continues, is that all of us get to communicate with each other and commerce gets done. There are lots of other ways that commerce gets done. There are a lot of other ways that communication gets done, but this is still a vital one.
And the gold standard. Did you want to break in? Or?
Sure.
I
just think absolutely to your point is that it was established that way precisely because the private sector itself couldn't do it itself. I mean, delivery of mail couldn't be trusted. There were all sorts of burdens or barriers for safe delivery. You know, rain, sleet, snow, etc. Attacks, but and as a vital part of our society and our republic, it needs to be done efficiently. You know, and I think that how we do this as a republic also involves necessarily taxation. You know, well, I think there's more need to be taxed than just individuals for the payment of it. I think there has to be specifically those who are using this the most. Some of these corporations need to be taxed appropriately.
Dr. Trovall?
Sure. I appreciate you hitting on that word bailout, because I was thinking, wait a second, either you pay for this or we don't pay for it, but I don't know about it bailing out. So, I agree with y'all that this is a service for the United States. And the United States does it at a time, I mean, it originated at a time when private business couldn't do it. But I still wonder whether you could even make serving all these rural communities in the United States, they become smaller and smaller, to what extent you could even make a profit doing it, which means that it's really critical for the importance for someone to pick up that place that private industry can't do. And that's what we pay taxes for. That's what we, as a government, do. We take up things that are not profitable because we're not a for-profit country.
Just a wash would be nice.
It would be nice, yes. And you know, are there restructuring? There are people who are smart. I'm clergy, I'm ethics professor. I have no idea what management structure. There could be partnerships with private industry like Amazon and USPS. There could be that. There could be, I mean, there are all kinds of possibilities, right? But I do want to hit on one more moral piece, ethics piece. And my wife and I had this conversation just last week. There's one person I know in my neighborhood who represents the federal government every day, and I know his name, and I see him, and he brings me my coffee, and he says, "Man, your coffee smells great." And I said, "That's great. Thanks for bringing it." He says, "Oh, happy to." And it's like, here's a contact with the federal government I get every day. I don't necessarily talk to him every day, but I could, I suppose, if I wanted to. But here's someone who represents for me the service of this nation, and they're delivering my mail, and while I don't get as much of it, I think it's profound that everyone in the United States has this opportunity to be in connection. I don't meet the government every day, except through the mail service.
You know, that was an interesting topic that was explored in a Kevin Costner movie, The Postman. And they discussed exactly that. Go ahead.
No, to your point, Carl, I think that's part of the frustration and the aversion that I think Americans have to paying taxes. besides that none of us like to lose money, is that we don't see and are cognizant of the benefits that our taxes do provide and pay for. I think so much of it is hidden. I think so much goes to the defense industry and other things that are sort of just hidden in there, that we don't see things like the infrastructure, which needs work, which needs attention. And also, like the Postal Service is something that we can be aware of, that we see, and that is, if you will, still a tangible linkage among people within our republic.
Yeah.
Tom?
Yeah, I grew up in a small town, but there were a lot of smaller communities than the place I grew up, where the post office is also the town center. It's the place that everybody knows. Well, I know I'm in that town because I'm where the post office is, and those are communities. It's much like the highway system, you know. A corporation would not find it profitable to expend the funds to deliver messages, to deliver communication to that little place, nor would a corporation find it profitable to build a road to that place. And yet that place needs communication, it needs a road, and so our taxes go to bail out the transportation system and the Postal Service that do those things for us, not just for those small communities, but for large communities as well. And this year, in an election year, the Postal Service is so much more important because so many more people are going to be voting by mail because of the fears that they have. Well, not in Texas. That's not a reason in Texas to get an absentee ballot. But in many states, more people are going to be voting absentee because they're afraid of catching an illness to go out and vote. This maintains our franchise. Therefore, it's important to be strengthened.
Go ahead.
I think, I guess the term bailout, I know, I don't want to let it go yet. Frankly, there has to be, costs really have to be addressed in reality.
Yeah.
And that's something that we have not wanted to do. And so the huge debt, is going to have to be paid sometime. And it has to be paid with a structure and with a plan. I think the idea, what we've lost in the area of public service is the notion of stipending. That as a stipend, it's a just form of pay, but it's also contributed to service. And that has to be looked at with regard to costs too. I think.
What do you mean stipend?
Well, the stipend is, in a sense, it is not a massive for-profit. That it's a just fee for a service.
Okay.
All right, but it's not that it has to fit cost of living. That it has to think.
Okay.
But like, it's different than a career.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
A service organization.
Throw in a few nickels that way.
Yeah, right.
Well, but it's supposed to be a priority in payment. Yeah, first. Yeah.
Very good. What we'll do now is go to a break, and when we come back from the break, we'll have our summaries.
We hope you are enjoying today's program. If you would like to learn more about the American Religious Town Hall, please visit our website at americanreligious.org. That's americanreligious.org. There you can read about the mission and history of the program, learn about the Town Hall estates, and view past programs by clicking the appropriate menu buttons. Each week, Pastor Lutz looks forward to receiving your letters. You may write to him at the address shown on your screen. Send your letters to Pastor Jerry Lutz, American Religious Town Hall Meeting, P.O. Box 180118, Dallas, Texas 75218. That's Pastor Jerry Lutz, American Religious Town Hall Meeting, P.O. Box 180118, Dallas, Texas 75218. Thank you for writing, and thank you for watching. And now, back to you and today's closing statements.
We have agree on something.
Well, we hope you do call and write. Our panel's continuing to have their discussion. If you'll call and write, let us know what you think about this program, what you think about past programs. They're all available on the website for you to look at, and some of them are now on YouTube. Then let us know what you'd like to hear in future programs, because we'd be happy to discuss the subject of your choice. Now we get to do our summations, and we're going to start with Bishop Olson.
Sometimes those things that are right in front of us are those things that we take most for granted, but which we really should be most grateful for. And I think that's the service of the men and women of the Postal Service in the United States, delivering of packages, delivering of essential things, some things that really include legal documents that required to be sent by hard copy with signature, etc. There is a cost in order to fulfill these basic requirements for our republic, and it's on the citizenry to provide, to pay for that cost. The citizens as individuals, but also the corporate citizens that benefit most from this service and also that contribute to its continued running.
Reverend Plumbley.
Thank you. From ballots during pandemic time to VA benefit checks to Social Security to those gifts for your friends and children and grandchildren that you've purchased online. The delivery of all of those things is critical for us. And sometimes we fail to appreciate the overtime that people put in when it's necessary, the late delivery trips that people make. We fail to appreciate the wonderful mechanisms that have been created to speed up the processing and the delivery of the mail system, from sorting machines to delivery trucks. It all is a massive logistical process, and it's one that is a great service to our country and needs to be respected.
I don't know how they're going to fix this challenge, but with 91% of Americans viewing the Postal Service as in a favorable light, something's going to happen. Something needs to happen. Obviously, it's important. I love the question here. Is daily delivery to every address in the nation a right? I don't know if it's a right, but it certainly is appreciated, and it certainly is needed. And I'm hoping, I know a lot of times we just don't miss things until they're gone, and somehow this is going to have to be corrected. I eagerly wait to see how they fix it, but I think we need the Postal Service. Amazon, FedEx, UPS, are these adequate enough to do the daily deliveries of regular mail that people in the rural areas and all Americans receive? I guess time will tell.
I want to give the Lutheran position on the Postal Service. The conversation is very interesting because I was trying to make a connection between our vocations as clergy and educators and how that connects. And I think it does, because I think that all of us in some way in our churches and our communities depend upon the Postal Service. I think it might even be argued that to a certain extent, the Postal Service facilitates the freedom of religion. I know there are a lot of ways to spread what we want to spread coming out of our faith, the gospel, other things. But I know I was completely dependent in the parish on the U.S. Postal Service to get newsletters out to the community and other things. So I do think that it also benefits those of us who are people of faith in the United States as well as a service. I want to, again, probably re-emphasize what you talked about, it being a service. And it's really ultimately important that every person in the United States is somehow connected. I had a friend who said, I just think it's amazing that I can put a 25-cent stamp on a letter and it'll get all the way to Hawaii for only 25 cents. Well, obviously...
Maybe 40.
No, yeah, I mean, he said that when it was 25 cents, okay? I understand it's way more now, but still it's amazing though, isn't it? Yeah, when you think about how inexpensive it is. And I'm going to say one other thing that's completely personal. One of the things that I did very early on as a child was to collect postage stamps. And it would hurt my soul in a spiritual way to not have the postage stamp artwork on a regular basis to brighten my day. In conclusion, I think the Postal Service is pretty critical for who we are as a people, and we're going to have to figure out a way to help it.
Carl, you make a really good point that the Postal Service is not just a tradition, but it's a tradition that's part of our fabric, of our culture. And it is part of many countries have postal services that have prettier stamps than ours, by the way.
They do.
And
most delivery.
Yes, and so the question is, how do we fund that? How do we pay for it? It's a really important question, probably not for clerics, but a really important question for politicians. And so we clerics can weigh in that we believe that this is a really important service. It's part of our fabric. And it's time for them to figure out how to make it efficient and to pay for it. Yeah. The Charter of the American Religious Town Hall provides that Roman Catholics, Protestants, Jews, educators, and others may appear on this program and can declare their beliefs without hesitancy. And that the rest of the members of the panel will uphold and guarantee that American right to all who will appear irrespective of race or creed, so that the rest of the world can see that here in America, we believe in civil and religious freedom, and not only just in theory, but in reality. Now, friends, until next week, at the same time and over the very same channel, the American Religious Town Hall meeting stands adjourned. May the God of all of us bless all of you.